I had known from, junior high school that I wanted to make movies. I didn't really know what or how, but I knew that I loved going to the movies and I knew I wanted to be involved with them. And it seemed almost like fate that while I'm sort of floundering around in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, that a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend heard that Francis Coppola was coming back from the Philippines after shooting Apocalypse Now, and that he was setting up a post-production facility, and they were looking for people. So I went in, applied for a job there, and immediately got hired. And my first day of work in the film business was actually working all that night. So I should have realized then that it was going to be a different type of career. But I started working at Zoetrope Studios as a post-production PA. Hauling moviolas and flatbed editors up 3 flights of stairs. And, I used to project the rough cuts for the editors, because it was a double system projection system, and you had to get the changeovers right. And I was the projectionist that the editors liked the most. So I screened every possible version of Apocalypse Now. I got to screen and watch. It was great. And I learned a tremendous amount, being at Zoetrope, but I'm still in touch with a lot of the friends I made those early years at Zoetrope Studios. One of the things that was my job as a PA was to inventory all the equipment. Moviolas, split reels, splicers. But Francis bought 2 cameras for Apocalypse Now. These Technovision cameras. I don't know if you're familiar with Technovision.
I've had, yeah.
Henry Kroshiki and, Vittorio would only shoot with the Technovision lenses. So they had to modify, which were Cook lenses that they modified with different mounts, but they had a very deep back focus. So they had to modify. They had a BNC-R and an Arri BL that they modified the shutter. That was what a Technovision camera was. So Francis had purchased 2 of them, and when all the equipment came back from the Philippines, it was my job to inventory them, to stick stickers on, to put them, store them in their...
Why did he purchase them?
Why did Francis purchase them? Because he hated renting anything.
Okay.
He wanted to own everything that...
That's kind of like me.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he bought the studio here in Hollywood eventually. So he had a post-production facility, and he owned all the moviolas and flatbeds, and he didn't want to rent cameras, and it made sense. I mean, if you have somebody to take care of them and a place to store them, why not? And can afford it, why not buy them?
Exactly.
So the equipment came back to San Francisco. I inventoried it. I didn't think much about it until maybe a year later, when they wanted to do additional photography on the Black Stallion, and then later Apocalypse Now. Francis said, you need to, use the cameras, and the camera assistants came in, and I was the only one that knew where everything was. I didn't know what anything was, but I knew where it was. And the camera assistant said, well, why don't you just come with us and, be a, camera PA on the set. So the first day I ever spent on a set, because Zoetrope Studios was post-production only until then, was on the Black Stallion. And I don't know if you're familiar with the film, but it's the scene where the Kelly Reno, who's the kid that, has the horse, rides the Black Stallion for the first time through the surface. It's a great scene.
Yeah.
They shot mainly in Sardinia, I think. And but this scene we shot up in the coast in Oregon. And I'll never forget that first day on the set, that it was just, it was being, an editorial and being in a dark room and working pretty much by yourself, to being, in this beautiful location on the coast of Oregon, and there's, 100 horses and horse trainers and Titan cranes and hair and makeup. I mean, it's just, there's such a hubbub of activity, and you realize, like, this is the this is the origin of the moment of, the creation of a film. And, I fell in love. I knew that I wanted to be on the set. I knew I wanted to work with cameras. And so I started, when Francis bought the studio in Los Angeles, Hollywood General, to do One from the Heart, he asked me if I would run the camera department for the studio. And I said, of course, yes. And it was really more of a glorified PA position, but I learned, working with Vittorio Storaro and the crew on that film, I learned a lot. Wim Wenders was a director at doing a film at Zoetrope called Hammett. Not one of Wim's best films, but and the development of the project just took a long time, and he sort of got frustrated and he decided in the meantime he was going to make a movie with Nick Ray, who he was friends with and was an American Friend. And so he asked Francis if he could use the cameras, and Francis said, yes, you can use the cameras, but you have to take Mitch with you. And they were shooting in New York. And we would shoot for a little bit, and then, Nick was sick, he was dying. And so he ended up having to go back to the hospital. We'd go on hiatus, everything went back to LA. And then a few months later, we'd go back and shoot some more. And this went on quite a few times. And each time we reorganized and started shooting, the crew would sort of shift. And, again, I went from being sort of like a camera PA responsible for the equipment to being a second assistant to I think the last time we started shooting, the DP was Ed Lockman,